What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to make you be happy, healthy, wealthy. Well, we can't make you do anything technically. We're hoping we're to inspire you to be happy, to be healthy, and to be wealthy. And big part of what we're going to talk about today is that health part, because often it's the most overlooked. And I have an expert today that is going to talk about burnout prevention. We're talking about helping you live your best life. And she is going to bring that all day long. Larisa Harrington is a coach and practitioner who specializes in helping successful professionals improve their mindset, recover from burnout, and enhance their emotional intelligence and leadership skills. She has over 20 years of experience in the well-being field and is a retired Air Force veteran. She offers coaching, consulting, and training to individuals and organizations. I love everything that you're representing. Larisa, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am fantastic and so excited to be here to talk about all things mindset and happiness and health and wealth.
Well, I will tell you right now, your happiness is glowing. You have a fantastic smile and a great way about you. So I can start there. I already told you I like the background and the gems and the stone, but you have this magnetic smile. So you seem pretty darn happy. I'm just curious because I talk so often about mindset. I talk about burnout, but I don't talk about burnout prevention. I love that word prevention. Let's not get to burnout and then deal with it. Let's stop the cause. So maybe I'll start there. How did you get into really helping people avoid this? Because it's such a prevalent thing for many professionals.
Yeah, so I will let you in on a little secret, GM. And the same thing, burnout prevention is the same stuff you talk about with self-care and taking care of yourself and the mindset and paying attention to what we need, how we're showing up, how we're feeling. And so, yeah, honestly, it was frustrating for me and hard for me when it was always about the recovery aspect of it and seeing people suffering for so long. And so when we can start talking about it on the preventative side of it, of okay, what are these things that we need to do every single day? Like I love that you talk about, the affirmations and the meditation and the paying attention every single day so that we don't get to burnout. Because my belief is that every single one of us are here on this planet to make a positive impact and to share our gifts and to show up in an authentic way every single day. And we can't do that if we're burnt out. We can't do that if we are in the hospital or not around anymore because we haven't taken care of ourselves. So I served in the military for 20 years, but I believe my job is to continue serving and that all of us should be serving in some capacity, which means we have to take care of ourselves so that we can do that.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of paying attention to what you need. Now, my favorite part about this so far is the fact that it's coming from a woman's perspective. And here's why. I've said this on my show before, but virtually every female client I have that walks through my door, I'll ask them the same question. What are you doing for you? And the answer comes back, taking care of the house, the kids, the dog, the husband, the wife, the career. I mean, name everything but themselves. And I'm like, no. I asked a question about what are you doing for you? So I love that this is coming from your perspective because I want everybody, men and women, but especially females. I want you to hear it. Larissa's going to say, because I think it's so impactful that you're talking about showing up as best you, taking care of your mindset, taking care of your body. So was that something that you learned in the Air Force? Is that something that you're passionate about it? Because I'm just curious where it came from, because I want more people, especially females, to adapt what you've made such a lifestyle.
Yeah, I will say I did not necessarily learn that from being in the military because our core values are about service before self, excellence in all we do, right? Integrity. And all the military branches have some sort of values around that. And so it's actually the opposite. It's about, oh, you're going to continue serving and it's okay to neglect yourself because the service is the most important thing. So for me, it was being in that space and seeing what the consequences of those beliefs were when you were really holding on to those values. And so I started as a a Turkish linguist and I was an analyst. And so, like, I'm thinking logically, that doesn't make sense to me that it's service before self. What if it's both and?
Mm.
Right. And so now that's what I live and what I try to teach others. It's a both and, not an either or. Because if I truly care about the service, if I truly care about being the best mom, I have two young kids myself, I have a husband, right? If I truly care about those people and the work that I'm doing, then I have to take care of myself so that I can show up in the best way for them, so that I can be patient and kind and loving and have the energy and the focus that I want in these different spaces. And so it was a lot of just seeing what wasn't working and saying, this doesn't make sense. It does not make sense that I continue putting others before myself, because that's not sustainable. And working in the military and seeing how many people ended up really like self-harming from like alcohol and, you know, being not taking care of their physical health and all of these things that were coming from putting others' needs before their own. And so it's both and. I can take care of myself and I can take care of you.
I love that answer. I mean, both and. So, because one of the things that I hit people with is stop being selfish, take care of yourself. And they're like, what? I'm like, look, you're
Mhm.
being selfish by not. The way you put that is a little kinder, which I like, which is and both and. I like that. So this is not pertinent to what we're going to talk about for the most part, but you just dropped Turkish linguist, like, oh yeah, this is what I started. You don't meet that every day. That's fascinating. Do you have that background? Why Turkish? That's amazing. But I'm just curious, and culturally, if you saw some of that in that culture where you're like, hey, these people really value themselves as many European countries do. They're very clear on holiday, taking care of themselves, maybe even before work or some of the other things. So I'm curious if there's a correlation at all there.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I was born in Germany and I studied German and French growing up. And then when I joined the military and, you know, it goes off of your test scores, what kind of jobs, and I hear linguist. Oh, I can be a linguist. That's cool because I already speak Turkish or I speak German and French. I can go do that for the military. Cool. Yeah, that's not actually how it works when you get there. They're like, yeah, we don't need German or French, but they did need Farsi. And so I was signed up as a Farsi linguist. And when I got to California, and Monterey is where our school is, then at the last minute, they said, hey, somebody dropped out of this Turkish class and we need somebody right away that can learn Turkish. And in Germany, there are a lot of Turks there. I, you know, had Turkish friends and my family, my mom and my stepfather were living in Virginia. And if you became a Turkish linguist, that was the only duty station you could go to. So I was like, oh, cool. I'll get to go back home. And I became a Turkish linguist and I stayed my entire 20 years at Fort Meade, Maryland. No, I did TDYs and deployments, but I never PCS anyplace else. And it was really that I just wanted to be closer to home.
Unbelievable. Now, being born in Germany, are you a long
Mhm.
lineage of military branch? Am I going too far? And that's a guess. I'm throwing
Yeah.
it out. Yeah.
So my parents were Army. My mom, my dad, my stepdad were all Army, and they were like, "Army is not for you. You're probably more suited for the Air Force." So they were all cool with me joining the Air Force and not the Army. And my dad still lives in Germany, and my mom lives in Maryland with me now. But yeah.
Unbelievable. Well, thank you for your service. All right, back to what your skill sets really are now. So we can learn French, we can learn German, we can learn Turkish, but we don't have enough time for the show today. Let's talk about mindset and some of the things that you do to really operate at the highest level of mindset. You know, I talk about so many different ways that I try to practice. I'm really curious to see on your daily practice, your daily routine,
Mhm.
what you're really doing to get your mindset right for the day, to show up as the best Larisa every single day.
Yeah, so I think we have similar practices because I've heard you talk about yours. But for me, first thing in the morning before my feet hit the floor, I practice gratitude. I focus on my goals. I do a visualization of the life that I want to create. And I do that before I get out of bed every day. I used to also be a Peloton. I think you do Peloton too, right? Yeah. I used to do Peloton first thing in the morning, but now I don't. I start teaching at 6:30. So for me, it's about me doing my mental and emotional health kind of well-being stuff first thing before I start with clients. And then every afternoon we go to the gym. I love strength training, lifting heavy weights. That is part of my self-care routine. And then as much as possible, I try to get outside in nature and go for a walk. I'm very strict with what time I go to bed and what time, even on the weekends. And I think that structure is so important for most people, but specifically for me, I need that every single day to make sure I'm getting enough rest.
So I want to get a little more granular because often I realize we'll say, hey, journal and meditate and do these things. But I get questions
Yeah.
off air. People are like, well, cool, but what does that mean? How do you do that? So I want to get a little more granular, specific to
Yeah.
your visualization, because I think
Mhm.
there's a lot of gold in the details of what you're really doing, how much time we're spending. Do you set that intention the night before so that you're when you're in this alpha wave state? That I'm just curious on your particular practice.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through like the visualization, whether it was this morning or a morning that you just loved, where you're like, man, I am operating better than ever than right now. This is the best I've ever been. Kind of walk us through what that looks like.
Yeah, and so I will say that there are some people where it's the same gratitude every day, the same goals, the same visualization. For me, it does kind of vary. Where sometimes, and you asked about, do I plan it the night before? I don't. I am somebody though that if I wake up, I don't ever hit the snooze. I don't ever worry about falling back asleep. So I'm fine waking up and doing it still lying in my bed. That's what works for me. And so when I go into the gratitude, I'm very specific and not just the basic, I'm grateful for my family, my house, my health, that sort of thing. Like those things are cool, but I try to be very specific about what exactly in that moment am I feeling grateful for, or and I do it in the morning and at night. And so having that specificity of this is what I'm grateful for, and for me as like an embodiment coach, I always focus on how this feels in the body. So it's feeling the gratitude in my own body, and thinking about then for the visualization where sometimes it's visualizing just a day, like okay, who am I showing up as, like who do I want to be, how am I showing up, how does that feel for me to say yes to these things and to eat these foods and to work out in this way. And then sometimes I do those longer visualizations where I'm focusing on like 10 years from now, this is what my life is like, and I'm picturing myself living this life where these are the things I'm doing, this is what I'm feeling, these are the people that I'm surrounded by. And for me, that's really helpful. And again, I don't need it to be structured because it's just in the moment. Okay, this is what I'm feeling called to do. And so it does last a different amount of time sometimes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you actually answered it. I be quiet, Jay. I'm listening to the darn thing. I was curious if there was a set time, and you said, yeah, it lasts different times. I love the fact that you go into more detail because that's the feel part that I think often
Mhm.
people miss, right? When we do, whether it's affirmations or manifestation, and people say, I want this. Well, no, no, no. You actually have to feel it. You have to actually be in the moment. And that's what I'm
Yeah,
hearing you say is like, I'm grateful for the love of my family. And then you actually see these human beings feel that touch, even though it's all here inside our head. I think there's a
yeah.
ton of brilliance to that. Um, do you touch your phone before you start this, or how do you wake up in the morning?
So I most of the time I wake up before my alarm goes off, and my phone is my alarm and time. So I do look at my phone, and like that's cool for me. And I'll tell you a secret. I don't tell my clients to do this, but I will often sometimes I write a morning inspirational message every day. I'll do that from bed too, where I know there's a lot of studies that say don't touch your phone ever in bed. It's not a problem for me and I can sleep perfectly through the night, but I do post my morning inspiration from my phone still in bed.
Look, it's real. I like it. My wife
Yeah,
crushes work in bed. I don't get it, man. I'm like, I got to get up,
yeah,
move the body. I got to do some stuff before I really think I'm going to show up. But she can sit there and just, she's in her zone and she does, she operates. So kudos to you guys. I love that. One of the things you mentioned in here is leadership skills. And it's probably I say performance, leadership, mindset are the three areas I really focus on. But I've really found myself really diving back into leadership. And I think there's so many amazing qualities that are learned in the military specific to leadership. And I'm not saying that's where you learned them, but I imagine you had some incredible leaders. I imagine you had some really shitty leaders and all in between. What,
yeah.
when you look at leadership, do you have a philosophy, and do you see certain attributes that those great leaders that you've seen or been around or are a part of today that you say, you know what, this is what I want every leader to really have and as attributes?
Hmm. Um, so I teach on like the mindfulness and emotional intelligence. And why I think those are so important is because when I've seen them in action with leaders, kind of going back to that example that I just said, like, hey, I'm not going to tell you to go look at your phone while you're in bed, but for me, it works. That mindfulness of I really appreciate when leaders don't have this one size fits all approach and can actually be present with the people that they are leading and understand that different people need different things, different people are motivated by different things, and those leaders that are willing to pay attention enough to learn how to best lead each individual and to be able to have that self-awareness and the social awareness and be able to acknowledge when they make mistakes and to be vulnerable, but still also have that presence of leadership that you know that they truly have your best interest and the best interest of the organization at mind with everything that they do. For me, that's inspiring, not perfection, not that they never make mistakes, but that they can show up authentically and but still have that presence of like I will lead them or they can lead me anywhere, right? I will follow them.
Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned two of my favorite words. You said self-awareness and obviously emotional intelligence. Now, these are skills that can be developed, learned, improved upon, I believe. I don't think anybody came out of the womb and they're like, man, I have emotional intelligence down pat. I got this. I don't think that's the way it works. So, how does one really improve their emotional intelligence so that they can be truly self-aware of how they're showing up to the world, how they can present their best version? Because oftentimes to have that mirror, we don't look or sound the way we may think we do. And I think that's what trips people up often is I want to have emotional intelligence. I don't want to be a jerk, but often I come across this way. So how does one really
Mhm.
hone these skills, Larissa, and continue to develop that emotional intelligence side?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the practice that we do before we need it. And again, like you talk about doing your meditation and your mindset work and your affirmations every day, those are the sort of practices that help that we can transfer into our waking life. And so when we can practice that mindfulness, the paying attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment, we can do that for ourselves and the world around us. Because when we don't have mindfulness, when we are not aware of how we're showing up, how we want to show up, what our goals are as a leader or just as a human, when we don't have that clarity and then we're not able to reflect that back and like, is am I actually showing up in this way? Like having that curiosity, then we can't develop that emotional intelligence, right? My belief is that it all stems from mindfulness. And so you have to practice that skill of being mindful and then take it out of a meditation practice, but integrate that mindfulness into your day so that you can pay attention and you can say, oh, wow, I'm noticing this thing in my body. I'm noticing that I am feeling anger right now by this person who said this thing. Instead of just allowing the anger to take over, what do I need to learn about this anger? How can I then make sure that this doesn't continue showing up in ways that I don't want it to? And that And that is what I see as being like one of the biggest things, is being able to recognize our own emotions, our own triggers, our own beliefs, and say, are these things serving me? And if not, okay, I'm going to offer that grace and compassion to myself, but then do that work that I need to do on myself. And that it's not like, okay, one day I have emotional intelligence and I don't need to do anything anymore. It's not, oh, okay, I've meditated 10,000 hours. I'm good to go now. I don't have to do it anymore. But this continuous practice that we've just integrated into our life. So we every day we're going to do our meditation practice and then take that with us into our day and not just allow it to be a practice, right? Same thing with gratitude. It doesn't matter if you're like, okay, I'm going to write these 3 things I'm grateful for, but then you go through the rest of your day without gratitude. Like, we practice these things in the practice and then we integrate it into our life.
Yeah, I love that. We've never arrived, is what I always say. And if you think you have, you've lost. The moment you think, hey, I'm here. This is me, baby. This is it. I got it. I nailed the nope, lost it. How often do you ask for feedback specific to know how you're showing up? Whether it's the people you're closest to, because I've found for me asking for feedback to say, hey, this is what my intention is. This is what I want to show up as. What say you? And giving them real permission to say, nope, yep, whatever the answer is, I'm cool with. But I'm curious, Larisa, how often do you ask for feedback? Is it a common practice, or are you really just, because this is your world and because you're so self-aware that you don't need as much? I'm just curious, because I do it, I don't know, probably quarterly at this point, where I try to really reach out for, constructive feedback. Is that a practice for you as well?
So I don't have a set structure that I ask for feedback, but I do think there is benefit in, yes, paying attention and recognizing the feedback that might be coming non-verbally or just from people sharing things, but also in asking that direct feedback to my kids, to my spouse, to my clients, to people that are closest to me. And I definitely think there is value in that, and how important it is that we're doing our own inner work so that we can actually receive that feedback without getting defensive, that we can listen and learn, because I believe that should always be continuing to listen and learn and grow until the day we die. Like, that's just something that is important for me, and I want to continue doing it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that 100%. Now, let me ask you this, because there's a subject on here, which is healthy habits, which obviously I think you're coaching, and it evolves and it revolves around this idea. Mine is very routine. I'm extremely structured. You mentioned being disciplined, and again, whether that's the background, with the military, or if that's just something you found to be most effective. Does your routine vary often, or is it pretty, like, from, I don't know, 10 years ago to today, it's pretty much the same? I'm just curious, because I don't talk about this often. I talk about the routines I do. How often does yours change as you're doing these healthy habits?
Mine change a lot. So if I travel for work, I might have a different routine when I'm in a different time zone or what I'm doing. Like yesterday, day before yesterday, for example, we typically go to the gym every day at 4 o'clock. My daughter and I go together to the same gym. She is 10, and it's so cute to do it together. And instead, it was gorgeous outside, and we took our dog, and my daughter volunteered to walk a friend's dog. We did that instead. For me, that is okay. For me, it is okay to change up the routine, because it's coming from this place of mindfulness of, I know what the things are that I need. And so sometimes I make little shifts to that. For routine, it's, I know I need movement every day. I know I need my meditation every day. I know I need to eat foods that are nourishing for my body every day. And it, again, goes back to mindfulness. I have to pay attention to what that is for me, because it's not going to be the same thing for you. I'm not the coach that says, okay, eat this food, get up at this time, work out for this amount of time. You have to pay attention to how that makes your body feel. And so you can choose every day what's right for me.
Are you writing your stuff down? Because obviously awareness continues to come up in the conversation, where you're clearly listening to your body. You're listening to, what do I need? What is feeling this way, that way? Are you writing this stuff down journal wise, or is this just something that you're keeping all up up in your mind. For me, I have to write it down.
Yeah.
Otherwise I get lost, but I'm curious how it works for you.
Yeah, I do not write it down. I don't track weights. I don't track how much I'm drinking, what I'm eating. For me, that works because I'm so tuned in to what I need moment to moment and then be able to make those choices.
See, guys, it's not a one size fits all ever. It's whatever works best for you. So it's okay. Look, she touches her phone before she gets out of bed. She does these affirmations, the gratitude, the loving practice, so much in bed. She varies her routine. I mean, I guess that's a big part of what I'm hearing. I love this, Larisa, because you're saying, look, there's no cookie cutter thing. I'm giving you a guide and I'm saying, this is what has worked for me. This is the basic principles that I think everyone should do. So let's line out a day for a minute, just healthy habits. And I know you did a little bit because you talked about, doing the visualizations. You talked about working out. You talked about healthy foods. Is there a set, there's 5 or 6 things that every human being you would like to see do on a daily?
I would like a meditation practice, whatever that is for you, whether it's laying in bed, seated, going for a walk, some sort of meditative practice, some sort of intentional movement, right? Not just the movement of, okay, I'm running to the grocery store or cooking dinner, right? Because people are like, oh, I got my steps in or I'm moving around. But that intentional movement of being present with your body and focusing on the movement, whatever that is. Eating in the way that works for you. Again, some people want to be vegan or you want to eat a lot of red meat, whatever. I don't care what you're eating as long as you're actually paying attention to how it makes you feel. So that intentional eating and saying, is me eating in this way helping me get the results that I want? Because if you're choosing to follow a diet because your spouse is or your coach said eat this food, but you feel like crap all the time, that is not serving you. Hydrating, making sure that you are hydrated, intentionally getting enough water throughout the day. How many is that? Is that like 4?
You count about 5. You're
Healthy.
doing good.
Okay. And I also talk about, I think I've heard you talk about this as well, like who you're spending time with. Don't just think that you have to spend time with people because that's the way you've always done it or they've always been around. Paying attention to how you feel around certain people and being able to say, no, this is not aligned for me. And maybe it's not as often, or maybe you completely release somebody from your life, but being intentional with how you feel around certain people and when you're doing certain things. So
I
I'd say
mean,
those are it.
yeah, that is huge. And the older I get, the more I realize, like, look, you set the boundaries, make sure they are in alignment with you. And it's not being a jerk. Look, guys, it's being true to you and making sure that whoever you're surrounding yourself with lift you up, not bring you down. I'm looking at your library behind you, and I love books. I mean, everyone that listens to me knows I love books, but do you have a top 3 favorite of books that have really shaped so much of this thinking that you have? Because again, I want everybody that shows up as a guest to have the same smile you do. I want everybody to walk through life with that same smile. So something has produced this, and I'm not saying it's just books, but it's shaped your thinking to get to that point.
I cannot think of books that I have so many. I mean, I have like 10 times this many books, and I love audibles now too. I will say this book I love because I read it to my clients. It's the Book of Awakening. I love this book if you've never heard of it. I love Atomic Habits, which is a newer book. I love that one. What other book do I have on my desk? Emotional Intelligence 2.0. I also love this book. I can't say that these are my favorites, but these are ones that come to mind for me that I've read more than once.
Love it. Well, anything I haven't asked you, I didn't know enough to ask you because again, you clearly have lined out how the day looks for you and given permission to say, by the way, it's going to change and that's okay. I love that. Anything I didn't ask you though, that you're like, JM, I got to share this with the audience before we start to wrap up.
I think you did such an amazing job of asking the perfect questions to hopefully help the people that are listening. And I hope what they take away is really about having some sort of routine in their life in whatever way that, and having a flexible routine or structure, whatever, and paying attention to what they need and not being afraid to ask for support. I think we didn't talk about that. I know that's something you talk about often too. Like, if you haven't figured it out on your own, ask for support. We have all gotten support to get to where we are in some sort of way. And like, we don't need to have it all figured out on our own.
I love that. And 100%. Look, we haven't driven that point home enough, and we never can. No one should ever walk this. They don't walk it alone. And if you've ever accomplished anything, I promise you didn't do it. You had a team around you, and celebrate that. So I love that. Larisa, if they want to just spend more time with you, see what you're doing, keep that smile in their life, where's the best place to connect with you online?
My website, larisaharrington.com, and my name has one R and one S in Larisa. People always spell it wrong. Larisa Harrington.com. And I'm on all the social platforms, and I love to post inspirational messages there every day. That's part of my morning routine. And so check me out. Come say hi.
Well, I didn't ask you this, but where do the inspirational messages come from? Do they come to you as you're in that visualization?
Yeah. I would say from God. Like, I don't know. It really is. I do my morning practice, and then I'll get some sort of like download of like, okay, this is what you're going to post. And then people are always like, how did you know I needed to hear that? I don't know. I just listened and posted what came out. So that's part of my morning routine, is posting every single morning.
All the greats have said the same thing. Listen, Wayne Dyer is like, I didn't write anything. It literally, God, energy, whatever you want to say, it came through my pen. I was just happened to be the medium, or I happened to be the tool to do it and put it on paper. So I love that. Larisa, I appreciate you so much for coming by. You brought just a wonderful energy, information. And like I said, I need this smile every day. So that would be my post. I'm going to keep like, okay, there it is. Got it. I got a visual. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I had an amazing time chatting with you, and I appreciate all that you do to bring good into the world. Thank you.
Oh, it's truly my pleasure. You guys, I told you, I'm happier. I feel healthier because you know what? She gave me permission to say, ease up on your routines, man. Just, it's okay if it gets a little screwed up. And definitely wealthier, man. Spiritually, I'm wealthier. I'm looking at her background and surrounded by these stones, and just I loved it. So I'm happier, healthier, and wealthier. I hope everybody else is as well. Make sure to share this. Everybody needs to have a little Larisa in her life, in your life, in everyone's life, because she is an amazing human being. All right, you guys, until next time, remember, your mindset matters. I appreciate you all. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.